Sorry about that. I forgot to start the recording. Okay. So, but particularly from resources point of view, sorry, from reason point of view. So reason helps you to ensure that your workloads are appropriately balanced, and which means that you don't struggle with lot of uh, you know um, uh, latency. Particularly, it should be a balanced way. For example, if you have three VMs which are in one region, then you can expect that all the three VMs will have the same latency. It should not happen that one VM will have the more and one VM will have the less, and the bandwidth is a problem or like that. Okay. So when you deploy a resource in the Azure, you will often need to choose the reason when you want your resources deployed. Some resources or VM like are only available in certain regions, such as specific VM size or storage type. So there are also some global Azure services that don't require you to select a particular region, such as Azure Active Directory, Azure Traffic Managers, Azure DNS. So these services like Azure Active Directory, Azure Traffic Manager, and Azure DNS, they don't require you to select a particular region. It is free to that, but there are certain features or certain databases or storage types, etc., or the VM size or the VM types which are specific to a particular region and will not be available across all the regions. So while you selecting the region, you need to be very cautious and see that which reason you are, I mean, the reason which you are selecting is appropriate for you. Uh, what you need, what storage type you need, what VM size you need is available in that particular reason, right? So, and we then what is the, I mean, why are reasons important? So Azure has more global reason than any other cloud provider we know, right? So these reasons give you the flexibility to bring application closer to your user, no matter where they are, right? So for example, if your users are you are creating some application and your users are somewhere in the US or somewhere in the China or somewhere in um, Russia or wherever. So depending on your user base, you would like to put your or specify your reason so that your users will be able to access your resources easily. Next thing is like and of course, when you say reason should be it's a kind of co-located things and well networked so that you will not experience problem. Now, some of the reasons are, uh, the reason, some of the reasons are specific to, say, US government agencies and partner. For example, US DoD reason or US government Virginia or US government Iowa. So, I mean, those reasons are like not not available normally for everyone, but yes, these data centers are operated by screened US personals and include additional compliance certificates. So in case if you want your VMs or your resources to be deployed in these particular regions, such as US DoD Central or US Government Virginia or Government Iowa, like that, then you need a compliance certificate. Moreover, then so there are some key features about the reasons which I explained. Now, second is about the availability zones. So availability zones uh, are the thing which, I mean, where you wanted to ensure your services and data are redundant, so you can protect your information in case of failure. So within I mean, in case if you're putting an availability zone, so availability zones are physically separate data centers within the same Azure region. So you assume that you have a Azure region, and within that Azure region, there are say three availability zones or two availability zones, and you want, and those are separate data centers, but you want them in your resources so that in case because of the power off or something, your or in case if you're some network problem or something, you will have another copy uh, of your resources at some place. So therefore Azure region is one thing and Azure availability zones are different thing. Azure regions are for your geographical redundancies, and Azure sorry, your availability zones are for your within region redundancies. So each availability zone is made up of one or more data centers. Again, the same thing, equipped with independent power, cooling, and networking. So these availability zones here are having independent power, cooling, and networking, and therefore, in case of any power problem or cooling problem or networking problem, in case if one availability zone will goes down, then you will have your data or your application running well on other another one. So and that's a kind of it's a kind of frequent problem, although we understand that the disasters and the war or natural calamity. I mean, if in case if such things happen, then availability zone may not help you, but in that case reason can help you. Okay, so an availability zone is set up to be I mean, within isolation, isolated boundaries. If one goes down, other continues to working. Okay, so but yes, not every region has support of the availability zone. um, you can't think of that every region will be having availability zones. Yes, I mean, in most of the cases you will find availability zone, but in many cases you may not find available availability zone. So accordingly, while selecting your uh, infrastructure or while configuring your infrastructure within the cloud, you need to be cautious that it is not necessarily that you will have the availability zones within a region. So accordingly you will be able to select it. Similarly, as I said, that there are some of the specific reasons which are restricted for some government purpose, right? So like as I mentioned about the DoD and all that. So in case if you need to access those resources, just in case, then you need a compliance certificate, and you need to go by that route, and then you will be able to deploy your resources in those in those, right? Okay. Now availability zones, I explained you what is the purpose. Although it looks like same to the reason, but there are different concepts. One is for bigger problems, one is for the smaller problems, like I mean, to protect your data for those purposes, right? So I mean, use availability zones in your apps. So when you um, when you use availability zones, you need to I mean, why you need to set up your application in multiple availability zones and multiple regions, just to protect, or just for your, or just to protect your mission critical applications, or build high availability into your application architecture by co-locating your computing and storage and networking and data resources within a zone and replicating in another zone. So always, whenever you have such thing like the availability zone, availability sets, reasons, you always can think of in in terms of having the more, the high, the better availability, or I can say the higher availability, or for mission critical applications, or the application which you don't want to have a downtime. But in case if you are running a small application and if you are fine with the downtime, okay, you can put your resources only in one availability zone and in one data center, and then you can play with it. I mean, you can play with that. But the bigger the company, the more, I mean, the critical the application, the critical the demand, the more redundancies you will need. I mean, you will need, so that things will not go down and you will be able to manage them, right? So next is, and that ways you have the reason depend redundancy, you have the zone dependency, and then you have the, within zone, then you have specific services. For example, as I said, that not all services will be available across all the regions and all of, availability zones. So while you select it, you need to be a little cautious that okay, you are going with the right. Okay. Next is that you can think of Azure cross region cross region replication pairing. So Azure provide a kind of set that, for example, and that Azure called as call it as Azure region pair. Okay, so some of the Azure region pair are given by the Azure, that okay, which Azure think that these region pairs are like good to go. So and these are like the availability zones are created by using one or more data center. There are a minimum of 3 zones within a single region, right? And it's possible that a large disaster uh, could cause an outage big enough to affect even 2 data centers. That's why Azure has created the region pair. Now, what is region pair? Uh, each region is always paired with another region within the same geography, right? So, such as the US, Europe, and Asia, and at least these region pairs, as the basic concept of 300 miles away. So this approach allows for the replication of the resources such as your VMs or storage, etc., that help reduce the likelihood of interruptions because of civil unrest or power outage or physical network damages or anything. So Azure provide a kind of uh, you know regional pair, pairwise regions. For example, in Asia Pacific, the regions are say East Asia, say Hong Kong, and the Southeast Asia, say Singapore. So that is a specific reason which is created by Azure, and you can so in case if you want, you can utilize the reason pair which is given by the Azure. Similarly for Australia East and Australia Southeast, Australia Center and Australia Central too, like that. So in similarly for Canada, for China, for Brazil, different in different countries or different geography, there are specific pair which is given by Azure, and those are known as the reason pair. Okay, so reason pair, I mean, with the help of reason pair, Azure ensures that yes, you will get the best compatibility and the best, outcome. Now, next is, but it is not essential that you strictly go by that. You can, for example, as I said, within India, if you want, you can put your data center in the Mumbai and in Bangalore, for example, or for in Delhi, for example, right? So accordingly, you will be able to do manage your thing, right? So we discussed about Azure region, we discussed about availability zones, we discussed about Azure region pair. Okay. Now we are going to discuss little bit more detail about the core services of the Azure. We have already discussed about the Azure Resource Manager, but I wanted to give you some view of Azure Resource Manager specifically, how your Azure Resource Manager sits bit, I mean, within the Azure, and how it integrates, the things. So, for example, here, where is that? Um, okay, assume that you have. So I'm just putting one line first. Okay. Now, assume that you have um, Azure Resource Manager here. Okay. So you have Azure Resource Manager. Uh, Azure Resource Manager. Okay. Okay. Am I audible properly? Okay. Thank you so much. So suppose that this is your Azure Resource Manager, and then you have different things within the Azure. So for example, you have Azure Portal, you have let me give it say a different color. So this is okay. So this is Azure Portal, suppose. Then you are having say Azure PowerShell. So here you have Azure PowerShell. Here you have next is maybe Azure CLI. Okay, and then you may be having uh, different REST clients. Then so these suppose okay, so this is the one layer. Okay, so suppose that mm, you are having this is one layer. Okay, sorry, I think I should take this one. Okay, now somewhere to integrate these things, somewhere here, suppose your SDK sets, which is for developers to work. Okay, and so this SDK is particularly helpful for PowerShell and for Azure CLI. Now this SDK is talking to Azure Resource Manager. Then this Azure portal, because it's directly from Azure capabilities, Azure has done a very fantastic job here. It can directly talk with Azure Resource Manager. And then REST client. So REST client, because these are JSON based, they can also directly talk here. Now the authentication so is also happening. So authentication. So first of all, when a user comes in, he need to authenticate via maybe Azure Active Directory. Now Azure Active Directory, as I said, so some of the resources last time I mentioned that which do not require or which do not have binding for the specific reason, we talked about that. So one of them is your AD. Next is, now here then you can have your data store, which is controlled by Azure, sorry, which is controlled by your Azure resource manager. So this, it can have your DB, it can have your data store, or it can have your web app. So assume that this is your web app, which is and then this is your virtual machine. So I think it is faster to, okay. So then this is your, so it can integrate with your virtual machine. It can integrate with your service management. It can integrate with your VM, etc. So it can manage these things like your VM, your other stuff. So sorry, it manages these things. Okay, so your resource manager. In case if you know a better client or the better drawing board, please suggest me the name, because with paint this is too rough. But right now what we have. So in case if you know the better drawing board, because we tried for uh, one with the WebEx, and that is even poorer than paint. But then I have the paint. But in case if you think that you know some tool which is better than this for drawing and all those things, please tell me the name. Okay, and I'm happy to use that. So okay, so the user need to authenticate first, and once the user will authenticate, then he can access your Azure Resource Manager. Your Azure Resource Manager can interact with several different type of tools, including the service management, VMs, data stores, your web applications, etc. On front end, it talks with your Azure portal, Azure PowerShell, and Azure CLI, which is nothing but command-based tools. And with the help of these command-based tools, you can through SDKs, you can interact with Azure Resource Manager. Even you can create it, and you can also control the underlying layers. Then you can also use different REST clients to to directly configure your Azure Resource Manager and the rest of the clients. So always when you work, either you will work through Azure portal, which I will show you, and most of the time we will be creating everything using Azure portal for our learning purpose, and you know many people are using it, but this would be the Azure PowerShell, and Azure CLI is the best choice for in case if you want to automate something using some script or something. So Azure provide you a kind of templates for Azure Resource Manager. So those templates you can also you can create once, and then you can use it for your automation, or you can directly use it, or otherwise you can use a different REST clients to interact with your Azure Resource Manager. Okay, so we will discuss, what are the popular REST clients also. Maybe not in the fundamentals, maybe afterwards. But these are the few important things which you can utilize. Okay. Now, we discussed about, okay, so the benefit of the resource manager is that with the help of resource manager, you can manage your infrastructure through declarative templates rather than scripts. Okay, so it's easier to use. So when you are having a declarative template, you can just customize that, and you can upload that. You don't need to write long or complicated scripts. So a resource manager template is nothing but a JSON file that define what you want to deploy to Azure. Okay, I'll explain it. Just give me 2 minutes. Then next we have the with the help of resource manager, you can deploy, manage and monitor all resources for your solution as a group, rather than handling these resources individually. So if you want, you can you can deploy your resources, you can manage your resources, and you can monitor your resources all with the resource group. If you will do it separately, it will be too cumbersome to handle a kind of a complex architecture. If you want, you can redeploy your solution throughout the development lifecycle. So you can have multiple copies. Once you create it, then you can create multiple copies of it. So you don't need to, you just need to validate once that, okay, your infrastructure, whatever you have created is good enough, and then you can redeploy it, whenever you want. You can define the dependencies between resources, so they are deployed in the correct order. Okay, then you can also apply access control to all services. So access control is what we call it is role-based access control. So role-based access control you can apply to control your access, which means your authorization, your authentication, all those things. And then you can apply tags to your resources to locally organize all your resources in your subscription. So with the help of tags, tags actually is a new concept. I know that we explained the subscription, but with the help of tag, you can easily group your resources, and you can say that, okay, for invoicing purpose, say you have, say, financial department, you have, say, technology department, and you want to segregate those things. So you can give a tag which is nothing but a generalized information, that, okay, these are the resources, or these are the things which are related with the say financial apartment, department, and these are the things which are related with, say, technology department. So that ways you can easily identify that, okay, what is the cost which is coming for one or the another department. Now with the help of it, you can organize your billing for your organization and view cost for a group of resources that share the same tag. So that is how you will be able to do it. Now, coming to the PowerShell and Azure CLI, as someone asked. So Azure PowerShell is nothing but here. So Azure PowerShell is nothing but um, the Microsoft version. You know that the PowerShell is always associated with Microsoft. So Azure provides the PowerShell, with the help of which you will be able to do the coding just like in the Bash shell. So the Azure CLI is the Unix based version, whereas or Unix or Linux based version, where you can create your stuff in the way you work on the Linux. But PowerShell is another thing where you want, where you can write your script in the Microsoft way, so using the Microsoft languages. So that ways you have, the difference between the PowerShell and the CLI. And but in case if you wanted to, if you don't want to go in that thing, which normally developers use, then you can go for Azure Resource Manager templates, which are nothing but the JSON form of managing your resources, and that you can deploy and redeploy and manage and monitor and monitor your resources, etc. Okay, so that's how you do. So I hope the difference between the Azure CLI and Azure PowerShell is clear to you here. Yeah.
Yes, it's clear. Thank you.
Okay. Now next is within the Azure account. Now in the Azure account, we discussed about that. Okay, 10,000 layers are, 10,000 is the capacity of an account, and you can have different layers, say even I think 6 or 7 layers of architecture which you can build within the Azure. So you have one directory, and that directory can have Azure account, and that within that you have the subscription, and within that you have resource manager like that. So accordingly, you will be able to organize your resources. So Azure subscription. So using Azure always require a subscription. Without subscription, you can't do anything. So a subscription provides you the a way to authenticate and authorize access to the Azure product and services. It also allows you to provision your resources. And Azure subscription is logical unit of Azure services that links to an Azure account, and which is an identity in the Azure Active Directory. Okay, or in a directory that Azure AD Trust. So there are two ways only how Azure works, particularly for authentication, either by using the Azure Active Directory, okay, or your Azure AD. Now, so and you can set up with the help of subscription. You can have multiple subscription. We discussed last time. With the help of subscription, you can ensure that your billing boundaries and your control boundaries and your things are properly organized, and you will be able to set it up with the help of your, based on your environment, based on your organizational structure, based on your uh, billing categories, based on your subscription limits. You can do that. Each subscription will have the subscription limit, um, uh, and that subscription limit is, will automatically get imposed on all the whatever you do or whatever configuration you are making. Right. So last time we discussed about the express route circuits. Suppose you are putting the express route say 10, then you will be then your subscription will, even your administrator cannot go beyond that. So because you are controlling it at account level, or you are controlling it at subscription level, accordingly you will be able to, your admin can utilize that much, not beyond that, so that even your admin cannot make mistake. Okay. Now we also discussed about Azure management groups. So, for example, you have the Azure Management Group for your human resources, for your IT, for marketing. Like that, you can create your, Azure Management Group. If if your organization has many subscription, you might need a way to effectively manage accesses, policies, and compliances for those subscription. And for that reason, you are using Azure Management Group. So Azure Management Group provide a level of scope above subscription, subscription. So and I mean, you organize the subscription into containers called management group. Okay, um, and apply your governance conditions to manage. I mean, to the management group. All the subscription within the management group automatically inherit the conditions applied to the management group. So in case if you are applying, applying any condition, any logic, any rule at the management group, then your subscription has to abide by that and will be only able to use that much. Uh, it will not be able to cross that. So hierarchy, we also discussed last time. Okay, so I wanted to cut short right now. We discussed about the 10,000 management groups can be supported in a single directory. We discussed about a management group tree can support up to 6 level of depth, and that limit doesn't include the root level or the subscription level. So within that, you can have like the 6 level of depth. Now coming to okay, so we discussed well about your availability zones. We discussed about the reason pairs. We discussed about the subscription. We discussed about the management group. We discussed about various things. And with this, I think now we are at the level where we understand that yes, the basic infrastructure of or the basic things for Azure. Now, the next thing which we are going to do is the core Azure services. Okay. And some of them we already discussed, but now we are going a little deeper into that. Okay. To understand what it is, how it is, and all those things. So when I'm saying core Azure services, so last time I also have explained you that about the compute, networking, storage, mobile databases, web, IoT, big data, AI, DevOps, so many things, right? So and we have and we discussed the 9 categories of it, right? Now we are going to discuss things in little more detail about main or the key Azure services or the key component of Azure. Okay. Now, just bear with me for a minute. Okay. So let us discuss first thing. So first of all, we will discuss about the core Azure concepts. Okay, which I think uh, many things we already discussed. But now, okay. So now we are going to discuss core Azure services, which is nothing but Azure virtual machines. Is it good? Okay. So Azure virtual machines. Normally we have like from your IT background Suppose you are going and purchasing a laptop, or I'm even making it more generalized. Suppose you are going and purchasing a laptop. Now, when you purchase a laptop, you know that you need to configure everything into it. Some nowadays the situation is a little different, but assume that say 20 years or even 15 years ago, there was a situation when people were purchasing the machines, they were purchasing a kind of dabba. Okay. And from that dabba, they were supposed to install everything from scratch. Yeah, the operating system, uh, whatever. Okay. And they can opt for, okay, how much RAM is needed, how much hard disk is needed, how much, what type of screen do I want, what type of things I want. Um, what should be my OS, what should be my applications within that, everything. So everything was, it was a kind of big headache for, at that time, even for people those who was like, I mean, who purchased um, computers. It was a kind of big headache for them. Okay. Now, nowadays things are like pre-configured, and you go in a shop and you ask for a laptop, and you can I mean you get a kind of pre-configured machine, which, and your shopkeeper will just tell you that, okay, this machine is having this configuration and this windows and this or this operating system, and these are the applications, and these are the security applications, right? And you are just going and purchasing it and coming back to home, and then after, once you come back at home, then afterwards you can start using it. Now, for general purpose, people use, say, Microsoft Office, people use, say, Adobe galleries or Adobe Photoshops or whatever. So in case if you have certain demand, you can tell your shopkeeper, and your shopkeeper will give you the laptop, which is like having all the things, whatever you ask. You can install your antivirus. I mean, you can ask your shopper to give you with a nice antivirus, with nice firewall, with nice router. You in case if you want a developer machine, you can also purchase that. In case if you want a high-end graphic machine for, I mean, for your games or whatever, you can just go and purchase that, and you don't need to specify that which graphic card it has or which. Okay, and even your shopkeeper will tell you that, okay, this machine has this graphic card or this SSD or this HDD or this blah blah blah, right? Now, so in a way, we are moving from core infrastructure to a to a product. So earlier we were in the mode of the core infrastructure, where we were building up the each resource, and I mean, we were taking up all the headache ourselves. That, okay, what exactly do we need? What configuration do we need? Everything, right? And assume that in case, at the time, say 20 years back, if people were supposed to set up a lab, they were supposed to set up everything in that, and including networking, the network operating system, the hardware, the routers, the bridges, everything, right? Even nowadays, still, if you are purchasing a laptop, in case if you wanted to go beyond a laptop, if you wanted to put up your class or something, then definitely you need to put your infrastructure by yourself, and you need to configure your lens and vans and whatever, right? Now, the same thing is the same thing is applicable. The same thing is applicable within the cloud as well. Just give me a minute. Okay. Okay. So, okay. So now the same concept you can think of currently when you are using Azure virtual machines. Okay. So Azure virtual machine, setting up an Azure virtual machine is not exactly same as purchasing a rough computer and setting it up, because lot of headache has been turned into from hardware into software. But now you can use them. I mean, you can use or you can configure your virtual machine right from your console, uh, right from your Azure, and you can utilize that. Okay, but still you need to think of that. Okay, how much storage you need, how much, what virtual machine you need, what operating system you need, what you need to configure, right? So, um, of course, all that will get configured at your um, within your data center or within that rack. But you need to take the responsibility. If you're installing a virtual machine, you need to take the responsibility to configure everything. And in case if you need to configure multiple things, for example, your VNet and all those things, then the trouble will be more, because you need to understand your networking concepts, you need to understand your every bit, so that you will be able to configure them properly. Okay. Now, the virtual machines are, so in a way, the virtual machines are software emulation of physical computer. Now, they include a virtual processor, virtual memory, virtual storage, and the networking resources. So these VM host an operating system, and you can install and run the software just like a physical computer. When using a remote desktop client, you can use and control the VMs as if you are sitting in front of it. So even with the help of your laptop, you can you can put up a server, and you can use that server as if that server is in front of you. But so that ways it says that the virtual machines are nothing but a kind of emulation of your physical computer, and and you will get the same power, although it is running somewhere else. But if you have a good bandwidth, good internet, and particularly with the 5G, I think it is making life a little better, because we are getting a better speed. Now, with Azure virtual machines, you can create and use the VMs in the cloud. Azure virtual machines provide infrastructure as a service, which is also known as IaaS, and can be used in different ways, right? So, and Azure VMs give you a flexibility of virtualization without having to buy and maintain the physical hardware that runs on the VM. Okay, so you don't need to go and buy it. You can buy it from your vendor, and that, okay, yes, I'm going to pay for it, but you don't need to buy a physical machine. You just need to purchase the subscription, and then you can purchase. I mean, some of the cost is part of your subscription, some of the cost you need to pay once you put your services there, sorry, your machine there, and then you can pay it as you go, because this is what we discussed about the consumption-based model, right? So you can create and provision a VM in just few minutes when you select a pre-configured VM image. But in case if you're selecting, in case if you're creating a VM from scratch, although it will take little time, but still it will not be that bad as it was earlier. A few say 20 years ago. So even installing a DOS operating system was taking, say, um, half an hour to 45 minutes. But now you can, create your VMs in just few minutes. Okay, whether you have a pre-configured image or but yes, when you are selecting a VM, you just select a VM image and then you deploy it. Okay. Now, example of using when to use VM. So as an architect, you need to understand that um, what is the purpose, okay, and accordingly you should be able to make decision. So during testing and development, so you can create different VMs for different purpose. So VMs provide a quick and easy way to create different OS and application configuration. Test and development persons can then easily delete the VM when they no longer need that. Okay. The next is when you are running application, in the cloud, certainly. So VMs are, useful for cloud, although you can create a VM without cloud as well. But, nowadays is because, everybody is using moving towards cloud because it is just not the VM which we need, but we also need networking. We also need several different components. We need several different services, and it will be, cloud providers a complete, a kind of holistic place where you can easily go and configure them. Now, when you are extending your data center to the cloud, definitely you need VMs so that your on-prem applications can go and sit on the data center. But although there are different approaches, which we will discuss in the future, how we will be able to do that. But yes, you may need a VM, right? An organization can extend the capability of its uh, own premise network by creating a virtual network in that. During disaster recovery, or to uh, meet your disaster recovery need, you can also have multiple VMs, because as with running certain type of application in the cloud and extending an on-premise network to the cloud, you can get a significant cost saving by using IaaS based approach to disaster recovery. If a primary data center fails, you will get you can create a VM running on Azure to run your critical applications and then shut down them when the primary data center becomes operational again. So even if you are having, you are using your on-prem mainly, but then you can also create a kind of cloud for your disaster recovery solution, so that you can, you will, by that way you will be able to at least save your primary things, and you will be able to switch your from on-prem to the cloud as well. So for that purpose also you can use, or if you are completely switching to the cloud, um, from your data center, from your on-prem, then you can also use the virtual machines. Okay, so the virtual machines, uh, you know you know that way we understood that virtual machines are basically, a IS concept. Still we are creating the same thing, but we are creating it on a faster node with the help of emulations and with the help of the features provided by Azure to create virtual machine in few minutes. Okay, now next what we are going to discuss is, next we are going to discuss about um, um, Azure scales, right? Scaling VMs in Azure. Okay, so how we will be able to scale VMs? Okay, what do we mean by scaling? Scaling means, in case today we need one VM, tomorrow in case if we need more VM, how we will be able to do. So we discussed this thing a little bit during the scalability and elasticity. Now we are going to discuss this again. So, but uh, little bit more. So, in case if you want your VM, suppose you have created one VM and you want to extend it further, what you do, you will be able to create create a copy of it. Okay, you will be able to create a copy of. Okay, you will be able to create a copy of your image. Okay, so suppose you are having one VM here. Suppose this is your one machine, and you want to scale it based on your increase in your your customer base. So you want one more copy of it. Okay, so how you will be able to do that? Okay, so you are currently having one, and you want a copy of it again. Okay, so that you will be able to meet the load, and then of course you will need a load balancer somewhere, but you want a kind of copy of it, so that now you can do it in two ways. Okay, one is in the form of load balancing. So I mean, so that if you want your, I mean, in what in your load can go in a round robin fashion. So one time it goes here, another time it goes here, and next time it goes here, next time it goes here. So that way, for example, this VM can handle say 50 customers, okay, or say 5,000 customer to be realistic. Okay, so suppose it can handle say n customers, maybe in in few thousands. Now, because in case if your customer base is increasing, you definitely need another copy of it, so that you can handle the load. Okay, so next, suppose now, say up till say n plus 1, n plus 2, n plus 3, it's fine that this the same node can handle them. But in case if your capacity goes out, say for example, currently if the n is say 5,000 and your current and this computer can handle say 5,000 customer, then in case if it is increasing from 5,000 to 6,000 to 7,000, definitely it will stretch up and it will go slow, and it will start showing your different type of anomalies. So to avoid that situation, you are creating, when you are, I mean, when you are creating it, you are putting a kind of configuration that after this much percentage of load, or after this much once that threshold cross off, then you need to, then Azure should automatically have another another instance, and that can also hold the same n customer. Okay, because it is just the copy of it, right? So this way you will be able to do the scaling. So if you want one, if you want two, if you want n different nodes, you will be able to, I mean, the Azure will be able to create it for you. Okay, and that is how you scale up. So continuously you can scale up, based on your, as your customer, I mean, as your customer grows, right? So this concept is known as Azure scaling VMs in Azure. Okay, now. So you can run single VMs for testing, development, or minor tasks, or you can group VMs together to provide high availability, scalability, and redundancy. No matter what what your uptime required, Azure has several features that can meet them, and you can do it with the help of, Azure, virtual machine scale sets, and so normally people, I mean, this is a very important feature, that you can go for Azure, I mean, VM skill set. Okay, so I mean, VM skill sets are nothing but Azure compute resources that you can use to deploy and manage a set of identical VMs, as I explained, and all VMs configured, all VMs which you are configuring are of the same size, same capacity, same configuration, no difference, right? But Azure, I mean, once you define a particular VM, you can ask Azure to create a copy of it. That is as simple as that. So this type of scaling, when you scale it like this, as I explained, this type of scaling is known as horizontal scaling, because you are scaling it like this. Okay, so this is known as horizontal scaling. You are going in this direction. Okay, so you are creating and you are continuously, I mean, depending on the workload, you are continuously creating it. Okay, so this is your horizontal scaling. Another type of scaling is known as vertical scaling. And what is that? That you are creating your resource, and then suppose right now your resources are, say, having some say 1 TB hard disk. Okay, now going forward, you are looking for 2 TB hard disk. Okay, because or currently you are having possess one CPU, and but next time you need the 2 CPUs. So that type of configuration when you want, so that is known as capacity increasing of the same of the same machine. So you are not creating different, but you are using the same machine and you are doing it. Sorry, you are increasing it. I don't know what's the problem. Okay, so you are you are creating one machine and then you are scaling it up. So if you want that, then you I mean that concept is known as the vertical scaling. Okay, so now you are increasing it from 1 TB to 2 TB, from one CPU to multiple CPU. So if you want that to happen, that is known as your vertical scaling. Okay, so this vertical scaling is what you need to configure manually. Okay, but this this is what call it as vertical scaling when it goes up like this. So the same configuration, earlier it was say with some resources, now you are increasing it up, right? So this is known as vertical scaling and this is known as horizontal scaling. Azure VM sets are applicable in case of the horizontal scaling, not in case of vertical scaling. Okay. Now, uh, with the help of this, you can uh, you know um, you can scale your things easier. And then if you want, as the demand goes down, the VM instances can be removed also. So the process can be manual, can be automated, or a combination of both. Okay, so that ways you will be able to do it. Why? Okay, so virtual machine scale sets let you create and manage a group of the identical um, load balanced VMs images, which I mean, to run your website, or that that enables um, various type of images that is or for your scientific purposes or whatever. So you can, I mean, you can use your virtual machine scale set. Okay, so virtual machine scale set is different than VM. So in case if you want to have the I mean, in case if the scaling is your need, then rather than going for VM, you should go for VM scale set. Now another concept for scaling is by using Azure batches. So Azure batch enables large scale parallel and high performance computing batch. These are the batch jobs. So with the help of batch jobs, you can create a very large scale parallel and high performance computing with the, I mean, with the ability to scale to tens or hundreds or thousands of VM together. So when you are ready to run a job, batch helps you in the in various phase. So it starts a pool of the compute VMs for you, install application and staging data. It runs the jobs with as many tasks as you want, and it identifies the failure, it, and require and it queues your work. Okay, so we so there are two ways of it, as we discussed. So one is using VMSS, which is nothing but virtual machine scale sets, and second is using VM batch. Okay, so with the help of these two options, you can do your scaling. Okay, and I also explained you type of scaling, which is nothing but horizontal and vertical scaling. So now we will discuss the next concept, maybe a little late because I think we have crossed our time. It's already we crossed our time. So next we will discuss in the next class. So in case quickly, in case if you have any question, please feel free to ask. And guys, in case if you have any question in between, please raise your hand and you can ask. Okay, so don't think that at the end only you can ask it anytime. In case if you have question, if concept is not clear, you can raise your hand and then you can ask. So any question?
Uh, Girish, so under what scenarios it is recommend to go for vertical scaling rather than the horizontal scaling? And also, can you just brief little
Okay.
bit more detail on the batch, VM batch? So, because you said, if you want to create maybe hundreds or thousands of VMs, so we can able to create it by batch, right? But still, we have the copy option, right? So maybe little bit more information will be
Yes.
helpful.
Okay. So just quickly, in the interest of time, because I'm having another meeting. Point number one is normally we discuss. Normally we have the horizontal scaling uh, in most of the time, and less in the vertical scaling. Why? Because we can automate the thing if in case if you want a copy of it, right? So you don't need to do much thing. Just Azure will do things for you, and Azure will be able to scale in or scale in and scale out depending on your whether you are going for scalability or elasticity. Now, in case if you think that earlier the way you configured your machine was not good enough, you should have a bare, a minimum copy of something else. Then you can put your, then you can go for the downtime and you can configure your machine manually, whatever you want, and then you can scale it up or scale it down, and then you can create your uh, you know machine that ways. So that is the answer of your first question. Okay, your second question was that, okay, about the VM batch. So VMSS is normally used for when you don't need a very large scale HCP. Okay, you don't need HCP, you just need to copy it, whatever be your instances. But in case if your demand is like in hundreds and thousands of VMs to get created, because of applications such as like the which are related with war or satellites or whatnot. So you should be going for the batches, because then it's like immediately it will create your hundred and thousands of machines, and you will be able to perform with that, right? Because when it is like a huge size, or the demand is very huge, so you can go for VM batch. But in case if it is for an organization or a general routine purpose, you can go for VMSS. Okay, and I hope that answers your question. Am I audible?
Yes, Girish. Yes, Girish. Thanks.
Okay. So with this, we need to close the call. Thank you, everyone for attending this, and I think you are getting a lot of benefit out of it. Please join in the LinkedIn and share your views or comments or whatever. More interaction you will have on the LinkedIn, I think better for all of us. You can ask any question there in case if you have any doubt or anything there. Okay. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.